Okay, let's dive in. There are these reports floating around suggesting Mexican drug cartels aren't just, grabbing burner phones.
Right.
Some sources, some intelligence, is even hinting they might be building and running their own cellular networks.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty wild, almost like spy movie stuff.
Totally. And you sent us this fascinating stack of info. Top of the pile was a report basically alleging that cartels have developed these, well, seriously sophisticated, completely independent cell systems.
The goal being presumably to just disappear from government surveillance.
Exactly. So our mission today really is to unpack these claims. We want to figure out what's actually new here, what's technically, feasible.
And maybe what parts still need a bit more solid evidence.
Yeah. We're aiming to give you the clearest picture possible without getting totally lost in the technical weeds.
And it's fascinating from the start, isn't it? This idea that non-state groups could be developing tech we usually associate with governments or, huge corporations.
Sure.
So the material you mentioned, it includes that key report about the alleged networks, but also supporting documents, government findings, academic papers, some technical background stuff.
Right.
We're going to try and pull all that together, synthesize it to get a handle on the potential scale and sophistication of what's being claimed.
And the why. Why would they go to such lengths? The report points pretty clearly to the 2009 arrest of Arturo Beltran Leyva, a major drug lord. Apparently, tracking his standard commercial cell phone was key to catching him.
Ah, okay.
And that event, according to this report, was like a massive wake-up call. It supposedly pushed the cartels to really invest in communication methods that are just much, much harder for authorities to listen in on.
So it's a classic case, really. Necessity driving innovation, even in, well, the criminal underworld.
It seems like it. A security vulnerability gets exposed.
And the response isn't just, say, switching to an encrypted app you can buy.
No.
It's potentially building an entirely separate communication backbone. That's a huge leap.
It really is. And, it's not like this desire for independent comms is brand new for them.
That's a good point.
Years ago, groups like Lacetis, they built quite extensive encrypted radio networks.
Right, like sophisticated walkie-talkie systems, basically, but encrypted and covering large areas.
Exactly. And I remember reading, maybe around 2011, about authorities taking these down, seizing antennas, repeaters, encryption gear.
Yeah, those takedowns were significant. It showed the capability and the intent back then.
So this drive for secure, independent communication, it's got history.
Definitely. That history is crucial context. Those radio networks, while impressive for their time, were kind of an earlier tech phase.
Right.
What's really interesting now is this alleged jump to full-on cellular networks. We're talking GSM, LTE, the stuff your phone uses every day.
Okay.
The main report we have details alleged discoveries of cartel networks using modified Tetra systems.
Tetra, that's usually for police and emergency services, right?
Exactly. That, alongside open source software like OpenBTS, running on software-defined radios or SDRs.
SDRs.
And maybe even, this is a big one, extensively modified commercial base station hardware from names like Motorola, Harris, Huawei, Nokia.
Whoa, okay. This jump to cellular is where things get really, really interesting. Let's get into some of those tech details from the report.
Yeah, let's do that.
First up, the software-defined radio SDR and the open-source software part. Apparently, the rise of SDR, which lets you do signal processing in software, not hardware, and open-source cell software, has made it way easier and cheaper to build private networks. The report throws out a figure like a cost reduction of 1,000x.
Which is massive.
Yeah. So basically what used to need huge corporate R&D budgets might now be doable for a well-funded criminal group. That could really change the surveillance landscape.
It absolutely could. SDRs give you huge flexibility and they're relatively cheap. And projects like OpenBTS or SRAN, they provide the basic software needed. Think of them like an open source operating system for a cell network.
Okay. You run this software on regular computers connected to these SDRs. Researchers, hobbyists, they've shown this works for years, for good reasons, like bringing connectivity to remote places or for disaster relief.
Right.
So the barrier to entry for just creating a basic private cell network, it has definitely dropped a lot.
But then the report goes further. A much bolder claim, really. It suggests cartels aren't just using off-the-shelf SDRs and open-source stuff. It says they're doing deep modifications to actual commercial base stations, like custom firmware, adding their own hardware encryption modules.
That's a whole different level.
Yeah, that feels like a completely different ballgame.
It really does. It represents a huge step up in technical capability we know cartels have used and maybe tampered with commercial radio gear before.
Right, the older stuff.
But these claims, deep mods to modern cellular base stations from the big vendors, that's pretty remarkable.
Okay.
You'd need serious expertise. Reverse engineering, embedded systems programming, hardware security.
Serious skills. Very high-level technical skills, yeah. If that's happening, it suggests they have, or have access to, some very capable people.
And the encryption side gets even wilder. The report talks about multiple layers, like a modified version of A53.
Which was an older 3G encryption standard.
Right. Plus AES 256, which is strong, standard encryption, and even custom elliptic curve cryptography.
Okay, so potentially very robust encryption.
But then there's this one claim that really jumped out. A frequency hopping system, supposedly found in Ciudad Juarez.
Yes, frequency hopping.
That allegedly uses geographic coordinates and the current time to generate the hopping pattern, the sequence of frequencies it jumps between.
Right.
The report argues this makes interception incredibly difficult.
Well, frequency hopping itself, FHSS, is a known technique. Makes signals harder to spot, resists jamming. The twist here is the claim of a proprietary method for generating that pattern, one that changes dynamically based on real-world data like location and time. If they've actually implemented that effectively, yes, that would add a significant layer of difficulty for anyone trying to listen in.
But then we get to GeoLock. This almost sounds like science fiction territory.
It's definitely the most out there claim.
Apparently, found in Michoacan 2022. It's described as a modified Diffie-Hellman key exchange, but it generates temporary encryption keys based on real-time environmental factors.
Environmental factors, like what?
Things like location, time, and even atmospheric conditions from built-in weather sensors.
Weather sensors, wow.
If this is real, it's just a massive leap. The report mentions a related U.S. patent, a Russian paper, but the way it's described here, this cartel implementation sounds unique.
Okay, let's unpack that slightly. The GeoLock claim is highly innovative. The U.S. patent you mentioned, that seems more about restricting access based on location, like geofencing, which is different.
Different from generating keys based on the weather, yeah.
Exactly. And we couldn't fully verify the details on the Russian paper cited, but the system, as described in the report, using real-time atmospheric data for crypto key generation, that is incredibly advanced.
Right.
It could offer amazing security against eavesdropping, but its reliability would really depend on the accuracy and security of those sensors and how robust the underlying math is. It sounds potentially brittle, too. That's
a good point. And it doesn't stop there. The report also says these networks have counter-surveillance capabilities.
Meaning?
Modified SIGINT receivers, signals intelligence gear for monitoring electronic signals.
Standard spy stuff.
And even jamming and direction-finding equipment. Yeah. It sounds like they're not just hiding, they're actively looking for and trying to disrupt anyone listening.
That would be a significant escalation, integrating signals, intelligence, electronic warfare. Basic counter-surveillance by cartels isn't new, but...
But this sounds more advanced.
Alleged use of sophisticated jammers, precise direction finding. Yeah, that indicates a pretty advanced capability to operate and fight back within the radio spectrum.
And you can't just build and run these complex networks easily. You need people.
Skilled people, absolutely.
The report touches on that, the human side. It mentions instances where cartels allegedly kidnapped or coerced telecom engineers.
Which sadly has precedent with the older radio networks, too, coercing technicians.
Right, and it also describes this alleged CJ&G-fronted telecom company with supposedly over 50 technical specialists.
If true, that points to a very organized, resourced effort. Moving to complex cellular systems needs expertise in protocols, software, crypto. A front company structure makes sense for recruiting and managing that kind of talent pool.
So, okay, we have these really, really intriguing, quite dramatic claims in this primary report.
Yeah.
But when we look at the other stuff, the government reports, academic studies, how well supported are these really advanced technical claims? It feels like maybe there's a gap.
That's a really crucial point to hit on. The motivation for secure comms, absolutely clear, well supported. The technical feasibility of building basic private cell networks with SDR, also confirmed by academic work. But many of the most advanced claims in that primary report, the deep hardware mods, the unique crypto like GeoLock, the EW capabilities, They lack widespread independent confirmation in the other materials we looked at. Government reports often focus more on cartels using commercial encrypted apps like Signal or WhatsApp. Academic papers show SDR potential but don't usually detail cartel deployments of such super customized systems.
And we see the history of the radio network takedowns.
Exactly. But detailed public confirmation of recent cellular network busts revealing these highly advanced features. That seems less common in the supplementary sources. There's definitely a bit of a disconnect there.
Right, which makes you think about the strategic implications if these advanced networks are real and maybe more widespread than confirmed.
Absolutely. It would seriously complicate things for law enforcement, for national security. Well, if these networks are truly operational and secure in the ways described, traditional surveillance techniques, wiretapping, signal interception, they become much less effective, maybe almost useless against these specific comms.
So they need new methods.
It would force a major rethink. New intelligence gathering strategies, developing new countermeasures. And beyond that, there's the worry about this tech spreading if one group develops it.
Others might get it too. Other criminal groups, maybe even terrorist organizations globally.
That's a significant concern, yeah, the proliferation risk.
Okay, let's try and sort of wrap this up for you, the listener. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, first, cartels clearly have strong reasons, a motivation, and a documented history of building their own comms systems.
Check.
Second, technologies like SDR have made building basic private cellular networks much more achievable, technically speaking.
Okay, that's plausible.
But third, the really cutting-edge claims that custom hardware mods, the unique encryption like GeoLock, the sophisticated electronic warfare stuff, wow, fascinating.
They seem to need more independent proof, more verification outside that main report.
Precisely. They remain somewhat speculative based on the broader range of sources we examined.
So what's the so what for you listening? Why does this matter?
I think what's really interesting here is how it highlights this ongoing technological arms race between criminal groups and the authorities.
A constant back and forth.
Yeah. And it really underlines how fast technology is changing the whole landscape of security, intelligence, surveillance. The fact that non-state groups might be developing tools this sophisticated.
It raises big questions, doesn't it? About the future of surveillance, maybe even privacy, for everyone.
It definitely does.
So here's a final, maybe provocative thought for you to chew on. Could it be that the current focus, maybe by law enforcement and media, on commercial encrypted apps, things like Signal, could that be unintentionally masking something bigger?
Interesting angle.
Like, could it be diverting attention from a potentially more significant, more independent technological leap happening kind of, in the shadows?
Are we maybe missing the forest for the trees? Focusing on the readily available encryption while something more bespoke is being built?
Exactly. Is it possible that the truly innovative, truly secure communication methods being used by these groups are the ones we haven't fully detected or understood yet?
That's a sobering thought. It certainly suggests this whole area needs ongoing, deep scrutiny. We need a much better understanding of this intersection between sophisticated technology and organized crime.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.